والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Alhamdulillah, we are almost at the month of Ramadan, one more Jum'ah, and then 2 Jum'ahs from now we'll be in Ramadan, inshallah. So the Prophet ﷺ in this month Sha'baan, it was almost like a preparation for Ramadan. As you all know, that the Sahaba, they believed in Ramadan, and they would, the 5-6 months in advance of Ramadan, would start looking forward to the next Ramadan. So, alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to see another Ramadan. This month Sha'baan is going to talk a little bit about this month and then go on to another topic, inshallah. So, Sha'baan comes from the word which means branch. And so they say that the month of Sha'baan, it like branches off, like they have a branch, it branches off into all sorts of good directions. And in that way, they describe it as a bridge between Rajab and Ramadan. In hadith narrated by Imam Ahmed, he was asked why, the Prophet was asked why he fasted so much in this month. And the Prophet said, it's a month that people neglect between Rajab and Ramadan. It is a month in which actions are raised to the Lord of the world, and I love for my actions to be raised while I am fasting. So we know this. Sayyidina Aisha used to also spend much of this month fasting, but we have a hadith that tells us not to fast in the last 2 weeks of Sha'baan. Prophet said, إِذَا بَقِيَ نِصْفٌ مِنَ الشَّعْبَانِ فَلَا تَصُومُوا. If half of Sha'baan remains, do not fast. This is understood by scholars that those people who are not used to fasting should not fast in the 2 weeks before Ramadan, because you may exhaust yourself before Ramadan. And Ramadan obviously is an obligation, Sha'baan is not. However, if somebody is used to fasting, say they do every Monday, Thursday, they can continue to do so. It's not a problem for them. And as you know, the last 1 or 2 days before Ramadan, you should not fast so that it doesn't mix up with the month of Ramadan. There's 2 major events that happen in this month in Sha'baan. One is the Prophet ﷺ, the incident of splitting of the moon. When the Prophet, the Quraysh asked the Prophet for a miracle, and they physically saw that the moon was split into 2 parts. And then basically when that happened, they said, oh, this is magic. Which illustrates that, this is why not all the requests that they asked for, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted, because God knew in His knowledge that these people, no matter what you do, they're not going to accept it. And there are certain people, it doesn't matter what you do, how you say it, they will not accept. That's just the way things are. So we don't have to go out of our way trying to show that we've got miracles and this and that and all the rest of it. The message should be enough. The second incident that happened in this month was the changing of the direction from Jerusalem, Bayt al-Maqdis, to Makkah. And as you know, there's a mosque in Medina, outside Medina, called Masjid al-Qiblatayn, the mosque of the 2 Qiblas, because they were praying, the Sahaba were praying, and then the commandment came to change the direction, and it's basically 180 degrees the other way. So we initially used to pray towards Jerusalem, to Bayt al-Maqdis, so obviously Masjid al-Aqsa it has extreme importance for us. And this is why in this month the Prophet ﷺ used to say, Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab wa Sha'baan wa ballighna Ramadan. Oh Allah, bless us in Rajab and Sha'baan and enable us to reach Ramadan, because obviously there's no guarantee that we will reach it. So I just wanted to mention that about Sha'baan, just in terms of the importance of this month. The other topic I wanted to briefly just talk about As you know, in Ramadan we will be reading a lot of Quran, and the Quran is full of stories, prophetic stories. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the best of stories, the best of stories are those which are mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will see that these stories, they come up in different parts of the Quran. So the same story will come up in a different aspect of that story will come up throughout the Quran. Now these stories, so obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wanting us to refer back to the stories constantly. It's not like you told the story and that's it. Apart from the story Yusuf, that's the only one where you get the full story from beginning to end. Every other story, Nuh alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, Iblis and Adam alayhi salam, it's told in different parts of the Quran. As we begin the Quran, we'll be reading Surah Baqarah. One of the first stories we come across is the story of Adam alayhi salam and Iblis. It's in about the fourth page. 4 pages we're into the story. And as you know the story, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was making mankind, Adam alayhi salam, the first man, and the angels asked, are you going to put something in the earth that's going to cause corruption? The reason they said that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before us had created other creation, namely the jinn. And also the scholar that wrote Bidayat al-Nihaya, Ibn Kathir, he also mentions that there was another creation called the jinn. And anyway, from what the angels witnessed of what happened on the earth, they said, this new creation, is this going to cause problems as well? Is it going to cause corruption? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I know that which you do not know. I know what you do not know. And they were silent at that. Then it goes on to the story of Iblis. So Iblis was a jinn. Some say he was an angel, but most scholars are of the position Kana min al-jinni, as in Surah Kahf, he was from the jinn. And he, because of his excellence in worship, he was put amongst the angels. And it said that he was like, you could say he was the dawn in the heavens. Like if you think of somebody who's well known, everybody agrees upon his piety, that kind of level, that was Iblis, right? So he was up there amongst everybody. He excelled more than anyone. Now when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates Adam alayhi salam, and this story is extremely important because this is the beginning of our story, right? And there are lots of lessons in these stories which sometimes we miss because we're just reading it as a story. We know the story, we've heard it before, and we just pass it. But if we start to analyze the story, we start to see so many different meanings that emerge, and obviously importantly, what we can apply in our lives. So, as you know, he's told, قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. The angels are told, prostrate to Adam, except Iblis. لَمْ يَكُنْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. He was not from those who prostrated. When he's asked, why have you not prostrated? He says, أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِنْهُ خَلَقْتَنِي مِنْ طِينٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ نَارٍ وَخَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ. So you created me from fire and you created him from clay. Now, in terms of this story and us applying it to ourselves, we have to understand what happens here. So there's an incident and there's a reaction. So this is happening to us. This is happening to us constantly in our lives. Constantly we have events. We're in Jummah today, right? We're up against different events, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching how we're going to react to that. Maybe you have a death, maybe your business goes down, maybe you lose your job, maybe you get ill health. How are you going to react to that? Or you have good news, you get something good happens. How do you react to that? So Iblis, remember, is at the top, and now this is a challenge. Allah saying prostrate. So now he's going to see how does he react, and this shows us there's two types of reactions in people. This story is not just about Iblis and Adam; it is about everybody. It shows you two approaches. One approach is the Iblisi approach, right? He says, قَالَ فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. So Iblis says, you have put me wrong. Who does he blame? He blames God. Who refused? Iblis refused. But who does he put the blame on? Not himself, on God. So that's one approach. So Iblis blames God. He's basically saying, you've made me better. And then he's blaming God. Then he starts to blame Adam. He blames God. Then he blames Adam. And he says, right, that's it. I'm going to take my anger out and my revenge on Adam. So basically he is blaming everybody except himself. So that's one approach. When something happens, we start blaming other people. It was the wife's fault. It was the kid's fault. It was the staff's fault. It was the leader's fault. It was the committee's fault. It was the imam's fault. It's somebody else's fault apart from goody two shoes me. Right? Now, Iblis, remember, we talk about being good gatherings, isn't it? We want to be in good gatherings, there's dhikr going on, Quran going on. Iblis is in the presence of who? The angels. No better gathering than angels. He is in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So being in the best of gatherings, he still fails. So even if you're in the best of gatherings, you can still fail. Why? We all know the answer, because of arrogance. Which means that arrogance is one of those actions that can block out all your good. And this is why, like I was saying, these things are happening to lots of people. So the Prophet ﷺ, before Islam, Abu Jahl likes him, Abu Lahab likes him, they all like him. They're all good people. They're generous, they feed the poor. As soon as he comes and says, I'm a prophet, oh, why you? Why not me? This is what Iblis said. Why him and not me? So you see the same Iblis behavior showing up now in Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl. And so this is what we have to be aware of, that we have that inside of us, that we can act like Iblis, or we can act like Adam alayhi salam. I'll come to Adam in a minute. So Iblis, despite all the dhikr he did, despite all the ibadah he did, everything he did, somebody could do Hajj for 50 years, it doesn't matter. You could be doing all these actions, but Iblis, because of his arrogance, cancelled it all out. So through his arrogance, through his stubbornness, not willing to accept the other person's viewpoint, he feels that he's being wronged, right? He feels like a victim, poor me, poor me. His reaction is to Allah, he's like saying, I can't believe you're doing this to me, Ya Allah. Right? You've made me better than him, and now you're telling me to do this. I don't deserve this humiliation. You're belittling me. So, does this sound familiar? When you say, I don't deserve it. Iblis is basically saying, I don't deserve this. And how many times in our lives we say, I don't deserve this? So when we do something like that, we have to understand this is an Iblisi response. Okay? The hadith in Sahih Muslim, it says, nobody will enter paradise, no one will enter Jannah, if they have mithqalu dharratun min kibr. If they have even a small weight of arrogance in their heart. And then it says, what is kibr? Al-kibru batrul haqq wa ghamtun nas. It is rejecting the truth. What does Iblis do? He rejects the truth. And what does he do? Ghamtun nas. He belittles people. He's belittling Adam. I'm better than him. So this is what arrogance is. Rejecting the truth, okay, and belittling people. So, your wife says, I don't know, or your husband says, oh, you forgot to do this. No, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. You start making excuses. You're not even willing to listen to, okay, maybe I got it wrong. But straight away you're on the defensive. No, it wasn't me. What kind of approach is this? It's an Iblisi approach. What does Adam do? So what's the right approach? Adam alayhi salam. Adam listens to Iblis, eats from the tree, we know the story. But what does he do? Does he blame God? Does he blame Iblis? He doesn't blame anyone. What does he do? He puts his hand up. Ya Allah, I was wrong. Rabbana zalamna anfusana. Right? If we were wrong, forgive us. So he puts his hope where? In Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. If we get it wrong, and this is the first human being, what does Allah do? Allah forgives him, and he still makes him a prophet. So the path of tawbah is the path of
Adam alayhi salam. The path of being humble, accepting your mistake, taking responsibility, asking for forgiveness, that's the way of Adam alayhi salam. Adam is also grateful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave him, and Adam alayhi salam has a good opinion of Allah. Iblis has a bad opinion of Allah. And as we know in the hadith, that you are in accordance to the opinion you have of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so you should always have a good opinion. So in conclusion, Iblis is all blame, and Adam alayhi salam is about taking full responsibility for actions. So the way of Adam alayhi salam is to accept your mistake, put your hand up, do tawbah and move on. And the way of Iblis is to blame and complain. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala safeguard us from that. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.